to the cold train track to see what would happen. The moisture on his tongue froze solid in seconds, fusing it to the rail. And when he tried to pull back, his tongue stretched but wouldn't tear free. His friends panicked, trying to yank it off, but they saw a train headed straight for them. They waved their arms, screaming for it to stop as it rounded the bend. And the conductor managed to slam the brakes just in time. He jumped down with a cup of hot water and poured it on the boy's frozen tongue, melting him loose. Guided into this cage, and the top is closed over them, trapping them into place. Then it lowers into a tank filled with a parasite treatment. The sheep are completely submerged into the liquid for a few seconds. Then the cage lifts the sheep back out of the dip and excess liquid drains off. The process repeats 2 to 3 times to make sure the sheep are fully coated in the parasite treatment. This thorough dipping helps protect the flock from fleas and ticks. The dog stepped on a loaded shotgun in the back seat of a truck and accidentally pulled the trigger. The bullet tore through the front seat and into a man's back, breaking several ribs and tearing a hole in his lung. He managed to call 911 and was taken to the hospital where he eventually recovered. When you pour water on a grease fire, the water quickly sinks below the burning oil. The intense heat instantly converts the water into steam, which expands violently, launching the burning oil above it into the air. This sudden expansion causes If a kangaroo is being chased by a dog, it might jump into a river. Now, once in the water, if you burn yourself, some people might apply butter, thinking that it will soothe the wound. But the greasy substance actually creates a barrier that prevents heat from escaping. This can cause the burn to deepen, damaging even more layers of the skin. Using ice can freeze the tissue and constrict blood vessels. The extreme cold can reduce blood flow to the wound and slow the healing process, which is why you should just stick to cool running water. If you burn yourself, they connected an artery from the sheep directly to a vein in the human patient. The animal's blood would then flow into the human's bloodstream, which they thought would help. But as the blood was replaced, the immune system recognized the sheep blood as a threat and attacked it. This triggered severe reactions like fevers and intense pain. Blood clots could form, leading to blockages in vital organs. And some patients experienced kidney failure, went into shock, and died. A boy in Siberia swallowed 31 magnetic toy beads, and they traveled inside his stomach and intestines. If they connected, they could tear through his digestive tract, leading to dangerous infections like sepsis. Doctors inserted a thin tube with a camera through the mouth into the stomach. Using this, they were able to guide a powerful magnet through the tube to pull the magnetic beads out of the boy's digestive system, which ended up saving his life. Locals in East London noticed the water from their beloved pump tasted weird. Unbeknownst to them, there was a nearby cemetery, and the calcium from the human bones was seeping into the underground stream. What was once thought to be a source of health had become a deadly concoction. Hundreds died in what came to be called the Pump of Death. Even today, the pump stands as a landmark, its wolf-headed spout a haunting symbol of the horror it once unleashed. If you step on this hidden wire, it pulls a spring-loaded mechanism connected to a gun's trigger. As the spring pulls back, it causes the gun's firing pin to strike the primer, which ignites the gunpowder inside the cartridge. This explosion creates high-pressure gas, propelling the bullet out of the barrel. The bullet then shoots forward, aimed directly at where the trap was set, and causing severe injury or worse. The toilet snorkel was placed in the water, extending through the bend in the pipe to access this air. This would be helpful during a house fire when toxic smoke filled the air. The water in the toilet blocks harmful gases, leaving fresher air trapped inside. By sticking a snorkel through the water, you could reach this air and breathe while waiting for help. The device patent even had a filter to keep sewer gases away, although it was never actually sold. Chainmail would block the sharp edge of a sword from cutting through your skin if you were in the Middle Ages, but it wasn't effective against blows to the body and head from large, heavy weapons. Later, the curved metal pieces on plate armor could block swords and provide some protection from arrows. Some crossbows wouldn't even get through, which is why the most successful tactic was just to aim for the face. A toddler plummeted into a narrow well in her aunt's backyard. She was trapped 22 feet below. If your hand is cut off, a bionic arm can help you regain movement by using signals from your muscles. When you think about moving your hand, your muscles send electrical signals. Electrodes on the bionic arm pick up these signals and translate them into movements. The motors inside the arm activate, allowing it to mimic the movements of a real hand. With practice, you can control the bionic arm to perform precise tasks. If your hand is The woman burst into flames in her home in 1885. The fire consumed her body, leaving only her feet intact, and her husband died. If you shove a bobby pin inside a lock, the pin could snap inside, preventing the lock from being opened. Instead, start by straightening the pin into a flat metal piece and removing the rubber tips. Then bend one end slightly and curve the other into a handle. Now create a lever by bending another pin at the right angle. This will act as your key. Insert the lever at the bottom of the lock and apply gentle turning pressure. With your pick, lift each pin until it clicks, and as they align, the lock will start to turn. If you shove a bobby pin, when you get punched in the mouth, the fist pushes your tooth against your jawbone and gums. This can make the tiny fibers that hold your tooth in place start to stretch. If they're stretched too far, these fibers can snap, which makes the tooth loose. At the same time, the force also pulls the entire root from the jawbone, and the tooth can be completely knocked out of your gums. If you dove into a pile of coins, some people think you could swim in it, but because they're made of metal, they'd actually lock into place to form a solid surface, and they'd be too heavy to move under your weight. Now, a pile of bills might look fluffy and soft, but unlike water, paper doesn't distribute force. Instead, it would all be focused on the spot that you land, and the friction between the bills would keep them stacked in a solid mass. If a spider grew to 1,500 pounds and had 15-foot legs, it could theoretically hunt a human. But it wouldn't be quite that simple. You see, they breathe through thin layers of stacked tissue, but these lungs only work for small bodies. A giant spider wouldn't absorb enough oxygen and it would quickly suffocate. Even if it did somehow survive, its legs couldn't support its massive weight. So without major evolutionary changes, we're safe from giant spiders. The body is packed in ice immediately after death. Then the blood is drained and replaced with a special antifreeze solution, which protects the organs from damage. Once prepped, the body is cooled to a super low temperature and placed in a chamber filled with liquid nitrogen. In this state, the body remains preserved. The bus slid off the icy road during a snowstorm, plunging 30 feet into the lake. It landed partially submerged. He was pulled into the dryer and trapped inside. Now, this was an industrial dryer, and the man had been clearing the conveyor belt that fed clothes into the machine. But when he climbed on to reach the blockage, he got caught up in the clothes, and there was no one there to help him. Temperatures soared over 300 degrees, and 20 minutes later, coworkers found his dead body. A tick crawled into a man's eye and bit it while he was cutting down a tree. He panicked and tried to flush it out with water, but the irritation in his eye wouldn't go away. In pain, he went to see an eye doctor, where they found the tick. They carefully numbed his eye and used tweezers to gently grab the tick and pull it off. If he had waited, the tick would have scratched his cornea, causing an infection. Just as you're about to wipe, a man in a red cape asks, red paper or blue paper? Legend says that if you choose red, you'll be slashed to death, and your clothes will be soaked in blood. But if you choose blue, you'll be strangled until your face changes color. Now, you might think you can trick him by choosing yellow, but that just means he'll dunk your head in the toilet, holding you there until you drown. The coal was hollowed out and filled with small explosives and covered back up. Then they were planted in the enemy's coal piles and shoveled into train furnaces. As it burned, the fake coal heated up, causing it to ignite. Once it exploded, the sudden blast ripped through the engines and boilers, and this often caused the train to derail, destroy. If you tripped while stepping on to a paternoster elevator, you might think you would get crushed to death between the floors, or fall straight into the elevator shaft. But most of these lifts have movable flaps between the edges of the car and the landing. So even if you tripped and got stuck, the flaps would just give way, letting you climb out safely. And the panels in between each car would stop you from sliding through the gaps. But modern safety laws are way stricter now, meaning you actually can't build one of these today. Start by rolling toilet paper across the gap. Then go back and do it 50 more times, and when you step onto it, you would still fall straight through. You see, a single sheet can only hold about the weight of a book, meaning more than 150 layers would have to be woven together just to hold your weight. And laid flat, the bridge would be about 20 sheets long and 8 sheets wide, just enough for one person to walk across, but only one at a time. If you put a rocket engine onto a Cybertruck, you might think you would get the fastest vehicle in the world. But as soon as it started, the tires would be ripped off the car and the frame would bend. The windows would shatter and the body would melt. Even the road underneath you would melt into a scorched trench. And regular brakes couldn't stop it, meaning even if the car did survive, they would poop through a wooden plank with a hole cut in it, right above the crashing waves. And whatever dropped went straight through the hole and into the sea. It was past the very front of the ship, so the wind would carry the smell away from the crew. But there weren't walls or railings, meaning in rough seas, a single wave could easily knock you overboard. Her hand got stuck inside the Easy Bake Oven while it was still turned on, and the heating element inside burned her finger. She finally managed to pull it out, but the burn was so severe that doctors had to amputate her finger. Now this happened because the toy was redesigned, replacing the light bulb inside with an actual heating element. But after hundreds of children were injured, the oven was recalled. As she walked to the plane, she tossed coins at the engine. And she did this so it would bring good luck for the flight. But even one small coin can cause enough damage to stop the engine mid-flight. So the plane was completely shut down. Then staff spent 4 hours inspecting and removing the coins from the engine, and the woman was taken away for questioning. If you get stabbed in the eye, place a cup around the knife and wrap it in gauze to stabilize it. Then cover both eyes. This is because if one moves, the other moves too, which can tear the wound open even more. Keep your head still and get to the emergency room, where doctors will carefully remove it before sealing up the hole in your eye. He rode his motorcycle without a helmet, and the police gave him a fine. But he was an electrician with access to the power grid, so he checked the records and found the police station hadn't paid its bill in 3 years. Now this bill was incredibly expensive, so he shut off their electricity. For 5 hours, the police station went dark, all because they gave a fine to the wrong guy. When you vape, the battery inside can short circuit. This creates intense heat within seconds. The chemicals inside start to vaporize, building pressure fast. And with no room to escape, it keeps rising until the battery bursts, shooting hot metal and flames straight into your face. It can burn your lips, shatter teeth, and leave permanent scars. When you vape, the battery They threw him in a freezing outdoor cell in a high-security prison, and his hands and feet were locked inside special shackles that took hours to unlock. You see, he had escaped twice before, and the guards were determined it would. The sun sits in space. It warps space-time almost like a net. The alert went off, showing 5 nuclear missiles heading directly towards the bunker where the man was on duty. Now, he could report this to his leaders, who would immediately launch bombs back, starting a nuclear war and ending the world as we know it. But he knew that an attack like this would use thousands of bombs instead of just 5. So he waited, knowing that he could die any minute if he was wrong. Hours passed, but nothing happened. It turns out that sunlight had bounced off the clouds and hit the sensor, which detected it as nukes. And by not reacting, he ate 3 packets of uncooked ramen as part of an internet challenge. But inside his stomach, the dry pasta started to absorb his liquids. They swelled up quickly, forming a hard mass and blocking his intestines. The boy suddenly felt ill, with severe stomach pains, and soon he started vomiting. But the mass was too big to come out, and soon he collapsed and died, all from an internet challenge. He ate 3 packets of uncooked. If you connected enough extension cords to stretch from New York all the way to California, you might think you could charge your phone from across the country. But you would actually need about 2.5 million 6-foot charging cords connected end to end just to. He flew all the way across the world and proposed to her, but even though she loved him, her family disapproved. So she sent him home, heartbroken. He never forgot her, and years later, he started dressing as a bronze statue, sitting on park benches. Tourists would pose. Make a small triangle with your hands and hold it out at arm's length. Then look at something far away through the triangle, keeping both eyes open. Your brain will merge the images from both